Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly profound, step-by-step guide to inner growth, spiritual harmony, and what it really takes to build an unbreakable community. We're going to dive into some powerful historical teachings that act as a roadmap for forging selfless bonds with the people around us, all while tackling the hardest opponent of all, our own ego.
So let's start with a bit of a paradox. Why do even the most faithful people who are actively striving for truth and higher meaning, so often end up in fierce competition with one another? It's kind of wild, right? You'd naturally assume that folks working toward the exact same spiritual goal would just cooperate. But history shows us a completely different story, one filled with discord, envy, and rivalry. So why exactly does that happen?
Section 1. The roots of spiritual discord. Because, before we can apply the cure, we absolutely have to diagnose the disease.
Let's wind the clock back to the early 1900s. Ideological divides were exploding, and an obsession with worldly focus was actively fracturing communities. Fast forward to 1926, and the author of our source text is unjustly exiled to a remote village called Barla. He's totally isolated, completely cut off from his huge following. But here's the fascinating part. It was right there, in that profound isolation, that he realized something crucial. True spiritual resilience means shifting away from the individual ego and moving toward collective solidarity. He actually noted that his spiritual impact during those lonely years far surpassed his time in the spotlight, and that was entirely because of the pure, unfiltered sincerity of the small, united group he had around him. That brings us to the 20th chapter, which lays out 5 absolutely foundational rules for inner peace. First off, focus on positive, constructive action. Don't waste energy tearing others down. Second, seek only divine approval. Human praise, it's completely fleeting. Third, never condemn the paths of other believers. The whole only my way is right mindset, that literally destroys harmony. Fourth, recognize that unity is essentially a magnet for divine assistance. And finally, build a collective spiritual persona. The text makes a great point here. In a world full of negativity, a single person can be easily defeated, but a united group, that forms an unbreakable spiritual wall. Section 2. Sincerity, the ultimate cure. Okay. Now that we know what causes the discord, let's talk about the ultimate remedy. We've got 2 massive concepts here. Ikhlas, meaning sincerity, and ukhuwat, meaning brotherhood. Sincerity is defined as acting purely to seek God's pleasure. It means completely stripping your ego out of the equation. And brotherhood is the natural result of that, an unbreakable, selfless bond of mutual support. In this framework, sincerity isn't just a nice trait, it is literally the medicine for a fractured soul. Without it, the whole shebang just falls apart. It basically boils down to a choice between 2 paths. On one side, you have vanity and ego. That's the endless chase for worldly validation, applause, status. And it's so destructive because it tricks you into seeing your own brothers as competitors for some limited prize. But on the flip side, you have sincerity, seeking God's pleasure alone. When you truly internalize that the reward for your actions comes exclusively from God, it is incredibly liberating. You just stop competing, because divine reward is infinite. There's no shortage of grace to go around.
Section 3. The 6th stratagem, protecting unity. To keep that unity safe, we need to uncover the ego's ultimate hidden trick.
Here is the real kicker. Envy is the absolute poison. The text, specifically analyzing the 6th stratagem, warns that the thirst for status and the fear of losing influence are the biggest roadblocks to unity. And it's sneaky. It tricks even the most devout people. You catch yourself thinking, wait, why are they listening to him and not me? Why does she have more followers? That insidious envy just quietly corrupts your intentions. Before you know it, you're serving your own ego instead of your spiritual mission.
When you consider the deep historical weight of these original manuscripts, it really grounds everything. These words were penned under intense hardship by people who risk everything to preserve them. It's a powerful reminder that these teachings on selfless brotherhood aren't just abstract, philosophical theories. They were quite literally a survival mechanism, a lifeline to preserve their spirituality during some incredibly dark times.
Section 4. Yielding is the foundation of brotherhood. So how do we actively beat back that envy? It all comes down to yielding.
I absolutely love this analogy from the text, like rough stones falling into a flowing stream, rubbing against each other to gain beautiful, smooth shapes. Think about it. When you're working closely in a community, there's going to be friction, for sure. But if you handle that friction with humility, it's actually a good thing. It acts like the water in a stream, naturally smoothing out your rough edges. Yielding to your brothers is what polishes and perfects your character.
The text also breaks down the anatomy of harmony. Just think about the human body for a second. The eye doesn't suddenly criticize the ear for not being able to see. Your left hand doesn't fiercely compete with your right hand. They just support each other seamlessly. And exactly like those organs, we need to cover our brother's faults rather than exploiting them. Because if one part of a body attacks another, the whole system breaks down.
Section 5. Renouncing personal recognition. Now we hit what might be the toughest step of all, abandoning the desire to be the star of the show.
The math of unity presented here is honestly fascinating. Picture 4 separate individuals. Standing entirely on their own, their value is just 1, 1, 1, and 1. The total strength is a mere 4. But when those same 4 people stand united, shoulder to shoulder in sincere brotherhood, they aren't just added together, they align. Suddenly, their collective strength is in 4. It becomes 1,111. Dropping the solo act literally multiplies your spiritual power exponentially.
Getting to that level requires what the text calls tephany. It essentially means fading into your brothers. It's the total shift from saying, I have to be the one to do this good deed so I get the credit, to genuinely feeling I am overjoyed if my brother achieves this. Defeating your ego means actually preferring your brother's spiritual success over your own. It's a total game changer.
Section 6. Steps to spiritual self-improvement. Let's take all these incredible concepts and turn them into a practical action plan.
Straight from the 21st Flash or La Mila Loma, here is your step-by-step roadmap. Number 1. Act positively, without even a trace of envy. Number 2. Never criticize a brother's sincere efforts. Remember the eye and the ear. Number 3. Channel absolutely all your strength into sincerity. Make God's pleasure the only metric you care about. And number 4. Actively forget your personal grievances for the sake of the collective goal. That right there is your blueprint for real inner growth. Of course, it takes a village. The community as a whole has to build a culture of deep trust, and leaders play a huge part in this. If you're leading, your job is to facilitate, not to dictate. When a dispute pops up, be the one who willingly absorbs the blame just to kill the conflict dead in its tracks. Stop promoting yourself and actively broadcast the virtues of the people around you. It's all about prioritizing the success of the whole over any single individual.
There's this amazing true story from the text that perfectly illustrates this. Hafiz Ali and Husrev were 2 major figures leading different groups in writing and preserving these spiritual texts. Well, a subtle rivalry started brewing between their circles. The very moment Hafiz Ali sensed it, he physically grabbed his pens, his ink, and his paper, marched straight over to Husrev, set them down, and said, "You are our elder. If you say write, I will write. If you say don't write, I won't." He voluntarily yielded his entire position on the spot. That sheer, raw humility completely dissolved the rivalry before it even had a chance to start.
And look, when friction does inevitably happen, because we're all human, the text gives us this incredible formula for resolving it. If you see a fault, give a share to destiny, a share to their ego, and forgive the rest. It's brilliant. You acknowledge human nature, you accept that destiny plays a part, but then you respond to your brother with immediate, sincere forgiveness. It is such a practical, liberating way to let go of anger.
Which brings us to the most important question for you today. Are you ready to yield your ego for the sake of true spiritual harmony? These principles of sincerity and brotherhood aren't just relics from the past. They are powerful, practical tools you can use right now to completely transform your relationships. So lean into the friction that polishes your character, let go of the need for applause, and just think about the sheer strength you can build by standing shoulder to shoulder with those around you.